Hello. Today's workout is going to be, again, from Neil Gaiman, The View from the Cheap Seats. I'm reading Topless, How Risque. Why Our Future Depends on Libraries, Reading and Daydreaming. The Reading Agency Lecture 2013. I'm only going to read half of this because it's a big workout. And I really like this essay. It's good. I'm turning the fan off. I was really hot. I went for a walk and I was really hot, so I got no shirt on, eh? Okay. It's important for people to tell you what side they are on and why, and whether they might be biased. A declaration of members' interest of a sort. So I'm going to be talking to you about reading. I'm going to tell you that libraries are important. I'm going to suggest that reading fiction, that reading for pleasure is one of the most important things one can do. I'm going to make an impassioned plea for people to understand what libraries and librarians are and to preserve both of these things. True. And I am biased, enormously and obviously. I'm an author, often an author of fiction. I write for children and for adults. For about 30 years, I've been earning my living through my words, mostly by making things up and writing them down. It is obviously in my interest for people to read, for them to read fiction, for libraries and librarians to exist and to help foster a love of reading in places in which reading can occur. So I am biased as a writer. But I am much, much more biased as a reader, and I am even more biased as a British citizen. And I'm here giving this talk tonight under the auspices of the Reading Agency, a charity whose mission is to give everyone an equal chance in life by helping people become confident and enthusiastic readers. A charity which supports literacy programs and libraries and individuals and nakedly and wantonly encourages the act of reading, because they tell us everything changes when we read. And it's that change and that act of reading that I'm here to talk about tonight. I want to talk about what reading does, what it's good for. Once in New York, I listened to a talk about the building of private prisons. A huge growth industry in America. The prison industry needs to plan for its future. How many cells are they going to need? How many prisoners that they're going to be 15 years from now? And they found they could predict it very easily using a pretty simple algorithm based on about asking what percentage of 10 and 11-year-olds couldn't read, and certainly couldn't read for pleasure. It's not one-to-one. You can't say that a literate society has no criminality, but there are very real correlations. And I think some of these correlations, the simplest, come from something incredibly simple. Literate people read fiction, and fiction has two uses. Firstly, it's a gateway drug to reading. The drive to know what happens next, to want to turn the page, the need to keep going, even if it's hard, because someone's in trouble and you have to know how it's going to all end. That's a very real drive, and it forces you to learn new words, to think new thoughts, to keep going, to discover that reading per se is pleasurable. Once you learn that, you're on the road to reading everything, and reading is key. There were noises made briefly a few years ago about the idea that we were living in a post-literate world, in which the ability to make sense out of written words was somehow redundant. But these days, those noises are gone. Words are much more important than they ever were. We navigate the world with words. And as the world slips into the web, we need to follow, to communicate, and to comprehend what we're reading. People who cannot understand each other cannot exchange ideas, cannot communicate, and translation programs only get you so far. The simplest way to make sure that we raise literate children is to teach them to read, and to show them that reading is a pleasurable activity, and that means, at its simplest form, finding books that they enjoy, giving them access to those books, and letting them read them. I don't think there is such a thing as a bad book for children. Every now and then it becomes fashionable among some adults to point at a subset of children's books, a genre perhaps, or an author, and to declare them bad books, books that children should be stopped from reading. I've seen it happen over and over. Enid Blyton was declared a bad author. So was R.L. Stine. So were dozens of others. Comics have been decried as fostering illiteracy. It's tosh, it's snobbery, and it's foolishness. There are no bad authors for children that children like and want to read and seek out, because every child is different. They can find the stories they need to, and they bring themselves to stories. A hackneyed, worn out idea isn't hackneyed and worn out to someone encountering it for the first time. You don't discourage children from reading because you feel they're reading the wrong thing. Fiction you do not like is the gateway drug to other books you may prefer them to read, and not everyone has the same taste as you. Well meaning adults can easily destroy a child's love of reading. Stop them reading what they enjoy or give them worthy but dull books that you, like the 21st century equivalents of Victorian improving literature, you'll wind up with a generation convinced that reading is uncool and worse, unpleasant. We need children to get into the reading ladder. Anything that they enjoy will move them up rung by rung into literacy. Also, do not do what this author did when his 11-year-old daughter was into R.L. Stine, which is to go and get a copy of Stephen King's Carrie, saying, "If you like those, you'll love this." Holly read nothing but safe stories of settlers on prairies for the rest of her teenage years and still glares at me whenever Stephen King's name is mentioned. The second thing fiction does is to build empathy. When you watch TV or see a film, you're looking at things happen to other people. Prose fiction is something you build up from 26 letters and a handful of punctuation marks, and you alone, using your imagination, create a world and people it and look out through their eyes. You get to feel things, visit places and worlds you would never otherwise know. You learn that everyone else out there is a me as well. You're being someone else, and when you return to your world, you're going to be slightly changed. Empathy is a tool for building people into groups, for allowing us to function as a more than a self-obsessed individual society. You're also finding out something as you read that will be vitally important for making your way in the world. And it's this: the world doesn't have to be like this. Things can be different. Fiction can show you a different world. It can take you somewhere you've never been. Once you've visited other worlds, like those who ate fairy fruit, you can never be entirely content with the world you grew up in. And discontent is a good thing. People can modify and improve their worlds, leave them better, leave them different, if they're discontented. And while we're on the subject, I'd like to say a few words about escapism. I hear the term bandied about as if it's a bad thing, as if escapist fiction is a cheap opiate used by the muddled and the foolish and the deluded, and the only fiction that is worthy for adults or children is mimetic fiction, mirroring the worst of the world the reader finds herself in. If you're trapped in an impossible situation, in an unpleasant place with people who meant you ill, and someone offered you a temporary escape, wouldn't you take it? An escapist fiction is just that. Fiction that opens a door, shows the sunlight outside, gives you a place to go where you are in control, or with people you want to be with, and books are real places, make no mistake about that. And more importantly, during your escape, books can also give you knowledge about the world and your predicament. Give you weapons, give you armor, real things that you can take back into your prison, skills and knowledge and tools you can use to escape for real. As C.S. Lewis reminded us, the only people who inveigh against escape are jailers. Another way to destroy a child's love of reading, of course, is to make sure there are no books of any kind around, and to give them nowhere to read those books if there are. I was lucky. I had an excellent library growing up. I had the kind of parents who could be persuaded to drop me off in the library on their way to work in my summer holidays, and the kind of librarians who did not mind a small, unaccompanied boy heading back into children's library every morning and working his way through the card catalog, looking for books with ghosts or magic or rockets in them, looking for vampires or detectives or witches or wonders. When I had finished reading the children's library, I began on the adult books. And they were good librarians. They liked books and they liked the books being read. They taught me how to order books from other libraries on interlibrary loans. They had no snobbery about anything I read. They just seemed to like that there was this wide-eyed little boy who loved to read, and they would talk to me about the books I was reading. They would find me, 10-page, other books in a series. They would help. They treated me as another reader, nothing less, nothing more, which meant they treated me with respect. I was not used to being treated with respect as an 8-year-old. Libraries are about freedom. Freedom to read, freedom of ideas, freedom of communication. They are about education, which is not a process that finishes the day we leave school or university, about entertainment, about making safe places, and about access to information. I worry that here in the 21st century, people misunderstand what libraries are and the purpose of them, If you perceive a library as a shelf of books, it may seem antiquated or outdated in a world in which most, but not all, books in print exist digitally. But to think that is to fundamentally miss the point. I think it has to do with the nature of information. Information has value, and the right to information has enormous value. For all of human history, we've lived in a time of information scarcity, and having the needed information was always important and always worth something. When to plant crops, where to find things, maps and histories and stories. They were always good for a meal and company. Information was a valuable thing, and those who had it or could attain it could charge for that service. So I'm going to pause there. I want you to think about what I was reading. I remember a review I got from Shane saying something about my books were cliche or something, and when I read this article, this essay from Neil Gaiman, I thought, yeah, it might be, some of the things I might write about are cliche, but for an Indigenous person who's never seen or read anyone doing the things that I've done, it won't be cliche. It'll be something new for them. It'll be something bold for them, something to aspire to, or not. But yeah, it's interesting. I review films, and for the most part, I'm pretty positive about most of the films I watch. If it's a bad film, I'll say it's a bad film. And same with books. But with books, I'm pretty kind and gentle too, because I really love books and I really appreciate the work that goes into them, because I know I'm an author, I write books. And it doesn't get easier, let me tell you. So that's today's workout. I hope you enjoyed it. And don't forget, if you ever find this book, check it out. It's really good. It's chock full of amazing essays and funny stories and articles and interviews with other authors and such. So Cook's Jam, thanks for the workout. I'm going to keep reading, or I think I'm going to play some guitar. Cook's Jam, take care. Election win-win. Kristen Squext. Have yourself a good day. Oh, and pick up a book.